Mm. Okay, so today we would be introducing design thinking. We'll be having an introduction to design thinking. Last week, someone asked me how do they get their idea from their head to the Figma file. How is it done? How do you go from zero to one? So this is where design thinking comes in. This is where we implement the design thinking process. So now, what is design thinking? Before I start, who would like to? I think there are some gurus here. Who would like to volunteer? Just raise up your hand if you'd like to try to explain what design thinking is. If you have any idea on what design thinking is, I want the class to be very interactive. No volunteer. Chikodili. Chikodili, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good evening. Okay. Oh,
Good
okay.
evening, ma'am.
AJ wants to try. After, okay, Chikodili, what do you understand by design thinking? Have you heard of it before?
No, it's actually
You have not.
my first.
Your
Yeah.
first time hearing. Okay. Thank you. Let AJ try. AJ, let me hear from you.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
All right, so design thinking is the process, the thinking process, like the way the designer envisioned what the design is going to look like, from the coloring to the interface to the plugins to everything that a designer needs for a particular design to come to life. Yes, so I don't know. So that's it.
See, you're defining design system. Can you hear me, AJ? I think you're defining design
I
system.
can hear
That's a
you.
design system. Yes, you clearly defined a design system. But that's not design thinking, though it's a part of it.
Oh, okay.
But thank you. Thank you so much.
Uh,
By the time we get to design system, we will see your definition again. Sunshine, let's hear from you.
Okay, design thinking, in my own definition, I think is a creative way to solve real problems by actually focusing and pointing out what the user really wants on that product, getting to know what they really want and figure it out and put everything together and design. I don't know if I'm correct.
You're correct. You're correct. I really like your definition. It's a very simple definition.
Okay, ma.
Thank you for that. Abigail, okay, Desmond, I don't know if you're waving at me or you're raising up your hand. Desmond, are you there? Can he
Yes,
hear
I was
me?
actually raising up my hand. Good evening.
Okay, leave me. Let's hear from you.
So yes, I just want to add a little bit to what Sunshine said. It's just basically a creative way of collaborating ideas to render a solution to the user and in real time, just generally giving what the user wants, having a thought of how the user is going to figure out or visualize that particular product, basically.
Thank you so much. Yeah, correct. Correct. Abigail, you still want to try? You have just said everything you want to say.
Good
Abigail, are you there?
evening. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay.
So, from my own definition, design thinking is how we approach, in solving problems creatively, by understanding the user needs, clearly stating the problem, and so on like that. Brainstorming solution and all.
Yes, yes. You have said what is supposed to be said. Thank you. Thank you. I like your definition because design thinking is not just applied to design or Figma or colors and fonts and all. Design thinking is part of our life. It's applied almost everywhere, in all fields. The principle of design thinking is applied everywhere. By the time we get into it, you would see why it's such a generic principle. Miriam, you raised your hand. I saw your hand. Do you still want to talk, or was that a mistake? Miriam. All right then. So let's move forward and see my own definition of design. Okay. First of all, I've already said this. How does a project come to life? How do we go from one idea to the Figma file? Did you just jump into Figma and start designing? This was someone's question last week. He wondered how an idea can come from their head and how do they produce it or reproduce it on Figma. So essentially, if you want to know where to begin to design the UI and the UX of the project, design thinking is usually the way for you, is the answer. So now, design thinking is a human-centered approach to problem solving that focuses on understanding users, challenging assumptions, and creating solutions. So most design projects go through many processes before the screen comes out. Most designs that you see on your phone, on your mobile phone, on your laptop, the website, they go through different processes before you actually see the screen. It's not just colors and fonts. I've been seeing this in a lot, but it's not just colors and fonts. Sometimes the research phase, like the the phase of finding the problem, the phase of ideating, the phase of thinking about how to solve this problem may take more time than the actual design. It's very possible if you have a 4 month timeline to design a product, you're going to spend 3 months on your research, 3 months on finding the problem, 3 months on in the design thinking, like actually thinking about how do we want to solve this problem. And the last month will be spent actually designing. Hold on. Okay, I got someone. So now there are 5 steps in the design thinking processes that put the design at the heart of the problem solving. The first step is the empathize step. The second, the define step. The third, the ideate step. The fourth, the prototype step, and the fifth, the testing step. Now, this is a kind of roadmap on how a project is is brought to life. If you can hear me, please thumbs up. I like more interaction in the comment section so I can know everybody's following. And I know I can be too fast, so just let me know so I can slow down anytime I get too fast. Can I see some reactions? All right, thank you so much. So now in the empathize step is simply derived from empathy. Empathy, having listening to people, be putting yourself in their shoes. You are trying to design something for a user. So you have to know what they want. You have to empathize with them. You have to listen to them. You have to empathize, basically empathy. It involves the whole research phase when you go to these people you're trying to design for, or you're trying to create an application for, and you ask them what is the problem, like what is the actual problem. It just involves listening. That's the main basis of empathy. Actually listening and finding out the core problem, not just assuming things. Then when we have done this whole empathy stage and we have gotten a lot of information, someone said, okay, this the app is cluttered, the checkout process is too long, the colors are too blinding, or it's too distracting. So what do we do with all this information that we get? That's where we enter the define stage. The define stage involves, like the name implies, is you're defining something. You've gotten a lot of research, a lot of information, and now you're trying to make meaning out of it. Trying to define the problem. Basically, you're defining the problem here. The problem, that's the priority problem that you want to solve. That's what the define stage is about. Ideate stage involves looking for ideas to that, for answers to that problem that we have figured out. The problem, like the core problem that we are trying to solve now at this defined stage. The ideas involves brainstorming, thinking of ideas, because there are a lot of ways to solve one problem. Yeah. So at the idea stage, we majorly think, it's majorly about thinking about different ways to solve that problem. Writing it down on paper, getting different ideas, just a lot of ideation. We should be familiar with what ideation means. Brainstorming ideas, brainstorming answers to the problem that we have defined. So now that we have brainstormed answers to this problem, we usually narrow it down to one, because you can only test one thing at a time. So to this problem now, I have gotten this probable solution that might work. Let me work on it and test it out. Then we enter the prototype phase. The answer or the solution that we have discovered or that we have found out, we prototype it. This involves us going to Figma or sketching it out, just different the ideas that we had in our head in answer to that problem. Now we're going to sketch it out. We're going to make a workable prototype, something that people can actually use at the prototype phase. This is the phase where you actually enter Figma. And you see that it's very, very, it's very close to the end. You can't hear anything. Is Master the only one that can't hear anything? Okay, Netochukwu, you can hear me. All right. So now at the prototype phase, when we are done prototyping, we test these answers. This involves us taking our prototype and giving it back to the user. You tell them, I listened to your problem. I listened to your problem. I got a lot of ideas, and I created this. I want you to test it out and let me know how it works. Does it actually solve your problem? That's the whole stage from. Okay, I'm fast. Thank you so much, Rita. So that's the whole flow from empathize to define to ideate to the test to testing. So you can see that it's a flow. It just goes stage one, stage two, stage three, stage four, stage five, so that you are not lost at any stage of the time. So now let's go into each properly. That was just I know I was fast, but we are going to talk about each of them in more detail. So now the empathize phase, that's the stage one phase. This is the first step in the design process. It is done to understand the user's thoughts, their behaviors, their emotions, such as comfort, the joy, the ease or difficulties they feel when using an application. It could not even be an application, it could just be a difficulty they feel on their own. It's as easy as people stuck in traffic and having problems getting from one place to another. This is a very, very um real problem and something that you can actually solve digitally. So it just involves you reaching out to these users, getting getting information from them and trying to understand and share their feelings, to know what the actual problem is and not just assuming things from you. So the empathize stage helps designers see the product from user perspective. It ensures that design decisions are user centered and not assumption based. Without empathy, we design for ourselves, not for users. So, as a case study, let's look at this situation where um, the CEO of a company has a website, but the website is doing badly. The traffic is bad. There is no much. There's no sales there's no sales and all. And he just assumes that okay, maybe it's the design. The design is not modern. Design is not catchy enough, because that's what most people assume. If you're not getting enough traffic or if something is wrong, they will think, okay, if you make this more attractive, we should attract more people. So now he hires a UI UX designer to overhaul the whole website, to design something new and catchy and very, very beautiful. If this designer comes in and does not do his own research and ends up designing something else, something new, something beautiful, but that was never the core problem, or that was never the problem that the user were having, the sales will still decline. Nothing would, if anything were to increase, it would probably increase by 5%. But since the core problem has not been solved and they were working based on assumptions, their problem, the answer they were giving to their user was not answering the problem, or it was not the solution to the problem that they wanted. It could be the problem could have been maybe the logout process was too long, so users were feeling discouraged to log in, or the checkout process was too complex. So when they want to buy something, if they put in their card details, if at a point they just get tired and be like, oh, I'm tired, and they leave there. So we have to actually understand and share the feelings of our users before getting into anything. Is the most this empathize phase is the most critical and most important phase of the design process, because you're not designing, we're not designing for ourselves, we're designing for users. That's our whole goal as UI UX designers. So we enter the next stage, which is the define stage. The define stage. Like I said before, using the data you have synthesized from the empathy stage, the second stage involves defining the core problem to focus on, and it determines the target user. Yeah, you clearly state the real problem based on your research findings. So this is to ensure that we are solving the right problem. Because let's take, for example, the case study I used before. The UX designer that is trying to redesign a website. So now, by the time if he had actually decided to let's try research first. Let me try and empathize with this before designing anything. He would have done maybe a survey or interviews, anything, get answers, and now he's going to get a lot of answers. There are going to be a lot of answers. There are going to be a lot of problems to solve. Some people might be complaining about customer support. Some people might complain about one thing or the other. If an old man is using the application, might be complaining about the font size. So there'll be a lot of problems to solve. But we are looking for the core problem here, and that's what defining helps you do. It helps you define what problem are we actually looking to solve that would make us achieve our goals. So it involves solving the right problem and defining and creating the problem statement, which is specific, user focused, and actionable. So now, instead of saying our checkout process is bad, it's a very generic statement. So if you're saying our checkout process is bad, what exactly is bad about it? What exactly are we changing? A UI designer is not about it's not about totality of the design or totality of a product. Where our impact is seen is in the details, like this just very specific little minute things that we change, and it changes everything at all. That's where we work our magic. Now, instead of saying our checkout process is bad, we can say users abandon their carts because the checkout process is too long or requires unnecessary information. So now this is specific and it's actionable. We know what to do here. It's too long, we shorten it. It requires unnecessary information. We remove some information to make it very precise, something that we can fill in immediately and get to the next step. So this is what we do in the define phase. So the next stage now is the ideate stage. The ideate stage. I feel like everybody should be very familiar with this now because I said it. I've said a lot on it. So now that we have identified the problem, it's time to come up with ideas about how to solve that problem. So we're going to, in the course of this program, we are going to talk about different ways to ideate, different ways to generate ideas, techniques like mind mapping, crazy eight, brainstorming sessions, which are used to come up with diverse solutions. So the aim is to think outside the box before narrowing down the best ideas. Like I said, there are a lot of solutions to one problem. So at the ideate phase, we just get as much answers as possible, get as much solutions as possible. Then we narrow it down. Any idea is welcome, no matter how bad the idea is. Idea space is just the phase to think and brainstorm. So now, in response to the previous example I gave, A team can brainstorm different ways to improve online checkout, like one-click payment, autofill options for guest checkout. So you see here when I said the checkout process is too long and requires unnecessary information. So if the application or the website or the application of the application or the website has an autofill process, the user would not have to fill in their details every single time they are in there. It just recognizes them based on their account or their login information and it fills it in. So they do not have to go through that process again and it's easier to check out. So the next stage now is the prototype stage. The prototype is used to develop your ideas. You create a low fidelity version of the solution to test with the users. So this is essentially where your skills as a UI designer comes forward. I did not see a UI UX designer. As a UX designer, you have been doing your work from the empathize stage. But a UI designer, that's UI, that's the user interface. That's why I try to, as much as possible, to differentiate the both of them last class. This is where your skills as a UI designer comes forward. This stage is about testing ideas quickly and refining them before full development. So prototypes can be as simple as sketches, wireframes, or interactive models. It helps a designer see what works and what doesn't before investing time and resources into building the final product. So this is a very, very important. This is what is very important thing about what UI designers, UI UX designers do. We help like we help companies, curtail losses. Yeah, because when we're able to prototype a design and get it working or make it an interactive model, we test this thing out before actually coding them, before the developers actually start working on them. This enables ideas to be tested before resources, their money, their time, and everything. Because to work on an application, one designer can design an application, but they might be using about three developers to develop the application. So us as the designer, it's our work to make sure that what will be developed or what will be coded is actually working at this stage. When we prototype it, we test it out. So for example here, I said design a clickable prototype of an improved checkout experience using Figma before developers code it. So like we said before, the autofill options or the one click, you can design the one click thing, then you design the autofill options and you design the guest checkout. So now when you design these three options, option A, B, and C, then we test the three of them out on our users and see which one works best or which one has the highest traffic, which one gives the least cart abandonment rate. So if once this thing happens and we find out that okay, well, it's the one click payment that works the best, then we already have our answer to our question. We already know what to give to the developers and the company or whoever we're working for does not have to spend resources trying it over and over and over and over again. Now this is the test stage. I've already talked about the test stage. We test the prototype with the user to see if there are any improvements needed and to see if the product solves the user's problems. So now, if problems arises, the design is revised and improved. So it's very easy to revise and improve your design compared to revising and improving a code. So testing is an iterative process. Iterative means something that you do over and over. It might not be perfect. I'm very sure, like many of us here, if we go back to something we have done in past 1 year or past 2 years, we'll be like, God, did I do this? What is this? Did I draw this? Or did I design this? Or this stuff looks ugly. So that's because we evolve, we get better. So our design or whatever we are working on should get better. So it's an iterative process. Nothing is perfect. So we just keep moving on and on and on. This is the last stage, is stage 5, is the test stage. Yeah. So now I just wanted to remind us that the design thinking phase design thinking principle, the design thinking process is not linear. Like, it's not always empathize to define to ideate to prototype to test. Sometimes you might start as prototype. The company you're going to work for, they might already have something that is working for them. So you might just have to test it. When you test it and you find what is wrong with it, you do not go back to empathize stage because you don't need it anymore. What you go back to is ideating, thinking of ideas to to solve that problem, because now you already know the problem. You came at a stage where the problem has already been defined. So now we work on ideating. So it's not always linear. Like it doesn't always go from empathy to define to idea to prototype to test. Sometimes when things are very, very urgent, you might just start with ideating. You might start with ideating before you even define. So it depends on your workflow and what it is, what you're trying to achieve. So a last step that is not always mentioned in design process after the test that I mentioned previously is the implement. This is where we put our vision to life. So very often it is the job of the developers to implement our prototype. So this why it's not usually mentioned is because it's not really our job to implement. We have done our job with the empathy, the define, the idea, the prototype, and the testing. Now it's left for the developers to implement what we have designed. So now and voila, our idea has come to life. So that's basically how we go from an idea in your head to a design on Figma. So before I go ahead, I'd like to hear from us. I've said a lot. So I guess comments, like what are we learning? Are we flowing? How is it going? Is there something that I skipped, or was I too fast? Should I go back? Just raise up your hand or say something in the chat box if you can hear me.
Can I say something?
Yeah, you can. That's good.
So mine is basically a question. When you spoke about empathizing, you
Okay.
said it requires basically gathering information from previous that's if you're working on the previous product. You said it requires gathering information basically. So I want to know, how do you go about gathering that information at the
Information.
initial stage
Okay. We are
so that
going
you
to get.
can
Hmm?
so that you can, define the
Work on
problem.
defined problem. Okay.
Yes.
We are the whole this I just mentioned the five of them like, as briefly as possible, but they are very, very deep. The whole design process from start to finish is empathize to testing. So at each stage, there are processes, there are other things under that we do. Now at the empathize stage, if you want to gather that information you want, there are lots of ways to do that, and we're getting there. There's interviews, you talk to them one on one. It's as easy as you just going outside your room or your house or wherever, just going to the road and interviewing people. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen on YouTube or anywhere. It's as easy as you just or using Google Form. Form is the most popular um, empathy empathy method because it's very accessible and it's very easy for us to just use Google Form. Yeah. Okay, for the user that said it was lost on prototype, it will be uploaded on YouTube, so you can watch it at your spare time. So Desmond Bassi, we'll get there, but I hope this has answered your question. We'll get into how to actually extract this information from it.
Okay, thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
All right. Okay, so someone wanted to say something. Okay, Adeze said, I do not understand crazy eight and ideas. We're going to get there, don't worry. But generally, crazy eight is just what they do is they give you 8 minutes. You have 8 minutes to come up with 8 ideas. So 1 minute per idea. So it's like let's say you have a problem. It could be the checkout process now. Then then just switch on your timer for 8 minutes. So you're supposed to draw 8 screens in 8 minutes. That's the basis of the crazy eight ideation method is just to it's done to remove that pressure of ourselves to that pressure of perfection. Because if you leave somebody to ideate something, they might spend 1 hour trying to refine one idea. They might spend months or weeks trying to refine. So with the crazy eight method, it's just about we're more focused on just getting a glimpse of the idea we have. We just want to see what do we think. So there's no time for perfection because it's just 8 minutes and you have to come up with 8 different things in 8 minutes. You're just very nonsense. Do you understand, Adesi? Are you there? Okay, yes. So that's the crazy eight. We're going to get there and we'll probably it's probably one of the methods we're going to use in ideating for whatever project idea we're going to come up with. Now, is there any questions or should I go ahead? We're about to enter the empathize stage properly, and just this is where I'm going to answer your question very well. A question. Is there any question? Any other question? Should we go ahead? Are we following? Am I too fast again? Okay, I guess there's no more questions. So okay. Now we go into empathize properly. So, like I said before, why empathy? Empathy is the most critical, is the most important. Because imagine designing something, full application. You have spent 1 month doing the whole thing, the colors and everything. It is not the problem you're trying to solve. You just wasted your time and you wasted the person that is paying you. You have wasted their money. So it's really critical to know what we are actually trying to solve, like the actual problem we are trying. Because every digital product you see, what they're actually trading is not the app. Like when you subscribe to an application, when you pay money to use an application, what you're paying for is not the application, but it's what the application gives to you, is the value that it gives you, the problem it's solving in your life, basically. So we really have to get to the core of the users, like to their core, we have to enter their head to know what exactly is the problem. So what are the ways we do this empathy, or what are the ways we fish out the problem? So as a designer, you have to understand your users in depth to discover what problems they are experiencing, like I said before. So why is empathy important? It helps identify real pain points users face, not just assumptions, but real things. You have heard it from them, from the horse's mouth. So you can't say it's assumption. It's real. It leads to better user-friendly solutions. It reduces product failure by addressing real users' needs, and it builds trust and emotional connections with users. So if I want to talk more on this, it leads to better user friendly solution. Let's just say someone tells you a problem. Sometimes when you engage with empathy stage, as they're telling you the problem, they're telling you the solution they want. They're telling you the answer they want. As they're telling you that this thing is too stressful for them, they'll be like, I wish it was this way. That's the point you can just speak out. So there's no way if someone complains to you and tells you they want something, and if you are done ideating and you give them exactly that thing that they want, how you can't feel with this process. I don't know if I'm making sense. You just can't feel because you're giving them exactly what they asked for and you're giving it to them well. So that's why empathy is really, really important and it helps to build trust and emotional connection. So now how do we empathize? Empathize, you start by setting your goal for empathy. Like you start by setting your goal, like what do I really want to to gain from this empathy? Like what is my goal for this empathy? Like, what is the information I'm trying to get in this stage of my design process? Then we start with user research to understand users and find out what problems they are solving. So now, like I told Desmond before, we can gather insight by surveys, by asking structured questions to users, interviews, having deep conversations with users, or observations. It can be as simple as observing users interact with the product. So the goal of empathy is to understand user behaviors, their motivations, and their pain points. So these are the three methods I listed here, but there are a lot more methods, a lot more ways to empathize. There are a lot more ways to empathize with users, to understand to know how they think and they feel, to hear them, to interact with them, to see what they say and do and what they see, So now let's go to survey in proper. Let's see how survey works. So a survey now is a questionnaire used to collect quantitative data from users. Quantitative data meaning quantitative data. We already know this is quantitative. Just mean when you say quantitative, it means numbers. So we are thinking about in large numbers. We want to get information in large quantities because hearing something from one user does not mean it's a general problem. But when you're hearing it from 10 users, 20 users, 200 users, means that that's a very, very core problem that you should be solving. So when do we use surveys? Surveys is best for gathering feedback from a large audience. And how do we use surveys? We use Google Forms, Typeform, or SurveyMonkey. These are different applications that we can conduct surveys on. In our next class, we would um would create a form. Like would do this process like hands-on the whole survey thing. So now, tip, the data obtained from the demographic section of your survey can be used to define your target audience user persona. So now, if you remember that every information that we are gathering from the empathize phase would be defined, like we have to empathize will just give you a lot of scattered information. But at the defined phase, we make meaning of it, make sense of it. So now, when you're carrying out a survey, now asking people their questions, what is your name? What is your age? What's your marital status? Your place of residence? This would help us. Like when we find out now, let's say I've done this survey and we find out that most of our users are age 20 to 30 or 30 to 50. So now we know that okay, our target users should be youth. It's youth that resonates more with this. Or our target users are are older people. It's older people that are more in need of this. So now this would inform our design. If you are targeting for if you are designing for older audiences, we might have to give more attention to things like the fonts we are using, how big it is, or the accessibility. Even if you're going to use a normal font size, there should be options to increase the font sizes of the applications you're trying to design. So these are different ways that we can get information. So survey. The next one is not observation. This one should be interviews. So now interview is a one-on-one conversation to collect qualitative insights. So now if you remember the previous in surveys, we are collecting quantitative data mostly. Quantitative because it's just a lot of information. Probably okay, you can ask questions like do you like this application? Yes. Do you hate this thing? No. How does it make you feel angry? Just very short replies, but in large numbers. That's why it's quantitative. But in qualitative now, it's in interviews, it's qualitative because you're having a one-on-one conversation with these people. You are listening to them. I think this is what I focused on when I was explaining empathy. Like listening to just like sitting down with somebody one-on-one and like tell me what you feel. How do you feel when you see this application? So when do you use interviews? It's best for understanding user emotions, their motivations, and their struggles. So how to use interviews? You have to ask open-ended questions. Don't ask questions that are closed um when like when you use this app. What's the closed-ended question? Let's say what time do you use this application? You can just tell you before I sleep or when I wake up in the morning. That's a close-ended question. Or questions like that we stated before. What is your place of residence? Hostel, non-hostel, or staff quarters? Just one answer. So there's no space or there's no environment for qualitative data, for pouring out your heart, your emotional problem, your motivations, your struggles in surveys. But in interviews, since it's one-on-one, person can just let you know how they feel. They can give you a whole rant on how an application makes them feel. So one tip for conducting interviews is that most of the time when you're conducting interviews, it's best to record the conversation. But when you're recording conversation, you must ask for the consent of your user, the person that you're interviewing. Most of us at this stage of design, when it's just us and probably there's no company that is backing you, people that we can interview are our friends, our family. You can simply tell them, guy, I have this app idea I want to test. So when are you free? Let me just ask you some few questions. You can even just be in your classroom if you're a student, someone is sitting down beside you, they're pressing their phone, and just be like, please, can I ask you some questions? It's just a few questions. That's basically interviews. So these are different ways we can reach people. Then the last one is observation. So observation involves watching users interact with the product without interference. So when do we observe? Observation is best for seeing real behavior instead of relying on what users say. How do we observe? By using screen recordings, usability tests, or in-person observations. So the reason why observation is very, very important is that sometimes what people say might not be what they feel. There's this there's this human bias or this tendency to please people that everybody has. You're having an interview with the person and let's say you put the person to test your applications. They might not want to hurt you or hurt your feelings by being harsh. That's why you have to observe them. They might be saying something, but their expression, their face, the way they are looking might be saying something else. So it's as easy as observing the users on where they on what they click, recording their screen when they are using your application. So like now, if you notice in every website, this login in a website now, if you go to a website really, the login and sign in button, they are always at the top right section. And is everybody with me? Please say something in the chat section. So I said yes, okay. So I said if you go to any website, the login and sign up is usually at the top right section, like always there every time. Every time it's always there. Yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. So it's always there. Why why do we always put it there? It's because based on history or based on people that have done this research before us, after observing people, we notice that that is usually the first place. Like it's like let's say the first place a user their eyes goes, the first place they go to when going to your website is the top left. That's the top left. Top left. I don't know if I'm making sense. Top left, that's here. You can see my mouse. This is the top left. This is the first place your eyes goes to. And after that is the top right. Yeah. So the reason why we put that login and sign up screen here is because we are trying to avoid what they call ICE and user strain or ICE strain. So now let's say if the login and sign up was here, that's UI UX, UI, this place that has UI UX. So let me show you the flow of the user and using this website that has their login and sign up at the top left. So now they'll come here and they'll look at the top, they'll look at the login and sign in. But they won't click it first because they want to see every other thing that is available. So they'll look at the top right. They'll also look at the top right where this KodeCamp is. When you look at the KodeCamp logo, they'll still go back here to this. I don't know if you understand what I mean. Let's say I'm coming to an application, but I want to log in and I want to log out. Yeah. So I'll first of all, even though I want to log in and I want to log out, if I see log in and log out here, I will not click on it immediately because I want to see what other options are available to me. So I'll go to the right. When I go to the right and I find out that there's nothing there, then I'll go to the left. So this is, if you can see, it's a three-step process: left, right, left. So the user has to go through a three-step mind flow before they click on login and log out. But when we place this login and log out at the right, now the user just only has to, okay, if they look here, they don't see the login and log out, they look to the right, if they see that login and log out, then they click on it, which is a two-step flow. Exactly, that's where they are. That's where they are. Exactly. At demo here. That is where they are. I'm telling you that I'm trying to explain what happens when we put the login and sign up at the place where this UI UX, this UI design beginner it is right now. Like when we put the login and sign up here, it's the user has to go through a three-step mind flow, like a three-step mind flow before they click on it. But if we put that where this code camp is now, you have to go one, then two, and they click on it. These are the different ways. These are the different like, it is different ways that designers have to think just to make sure that an application is it's serving a user well or serving our problem well. So this is where observation comes into play. I know this trick now or this 3 mind flow and this 2 mind flow, not because I observed directly, but because of people that were before me that have observed and found this out. Understand? So now let's see. So in summary, design thinking is a human-centered approach to solve problems by deeply understanding users and iterating on solution. So the process is iterative, like I said before. You go back and forth. You will test. If test is not working, you go back to ideating. If ideating is not working, you might I'll go back to empathizing. Let me do more research and find the problem. When I've gotten my problem, I will define. When I've defined, I already have an idea. I'll just jump to prototyping and testing. So it's iterative and it jumps back and forth. It's not linear. So the 5 stages of the design thinking. This just hold these 5 stages right like at your heart because it's the step that will follow you throughout your design or your UX design journey. The empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and the testing. Now, empathy is the foundation of great design. Without it, we design based on assumptions instead of real user needs. Successful products don't come from guessing. They come from understanding users, defining problems clearly, and testing solutions. So user research helps us uncover real needs. This is just a summary of everything we have learned today. Survey, interviews, and observations are key research methods to empathize with users. And good research leads to better design decisions. So this is a summary of everything we have learned today. Do we have any questions? Any questions that you want to share? If you know something I didn't mention, you can also let us know. Just raise up your hand. I like some voices here. I like to hear people talk. So now I know why I couldn't just create any design on Figma like my friends. Like, yeah, so they're trying to be a UI designer, but you have to do the UX first. You have to spend a lot of time on the research and the problem you're trying to solve, not just going into Figma. Ask and you shall find. Yes. So ask questions. Is there anything you're trying to you want to tell me or let me know? Question, questions or was I too fast? Any feedback? I'm willing to, I want to hear from us. If someone doesn't say something, I'll call someone name. I'll call somebody. Okay, Abdul Ademoye, please, let's hear from you.
Hello, hello, can you hear me?
I
Can
can
you
hear
hear me?
you. I can hear you.
Hello? All right.
I can
So
hear you.
yeah, so I really yeah, I know. So I really appreciate your effort at teaching this, and I really enjoyed it because I've been like dreaming about one day, yes, I'm going to learn UI UX, but I don't want to go through the self-taught journey because I've learned a lot of stuff through the self-taught route. More like I'm currently a webflow developer. Yeah. So and I need this UI UX in order to make my designs then develop it directly. That's why I joined. So thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Abigail, unmute your mic. Say, I want you to say it out.
Yes, ma. Thank you for the class. So
You,
I said the
you,
I said the- ma.
yeah, I'm listening. I'm listening.
Oh, okay. I said the brainstorming is really hard. Like before you think, like you know, try to like um figure out what the user needs, this and that. That's what I'm saying. Like it's really hard.
But thing is, most people, when you hear of a project, just we jump into brainstorming. And brainstorming meaning that we have skipped the empathize step and define step. I feel like once you're able to talk to your user and get their core problems, it's very easy. It's now easier to know if you're actually brainstorming, what am I brainstorming on? It narrows it down a lot, like a lot more. So sometimes we should focus more on actually understanding the user. What is the main problem? Where is the problem from? Understanding them maybe via the surveys, the interviews, or the observations. By the time you're able to observe them and actually see where the main problem is, then you think about brainstorming. The truth is that the bare minimum or the basics of of design is out there. There's a lot of designs on mobile. Things like search bars, the colors and everything like everything is out there already. So the basic things that we usually have to brainstorm on is already out there. There are a lot of designs to get inspiration from or to draw inspiration from. But the difference, what will differentiate your design from what has been produced before is its ability to actually solve the user's problem, their core problem. I don't know if that makes sense.
Ma?
I don't know if that makes sense, Abigail.
Yeah. Yes, ma. Thank you very much.
So thank you everybody. The session has ended. Good evening and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you, ma.
Thank you so much for the